Okie doke. Hello, sisters in crime. It is Tuesday at 1 p.m. Eastern USA time, and that means we're doing a weekly live where we get 5 tips or tricks from an author about a topic of interest to our membership. Today, we're going to be joined by Adrian Andover, who's going to be talking about 5 choices indie authors must make. Quickly, first, a couple of Sisters in Crime related announcements. We are open for entries for the Pride Awards. So these awards are for emerging LGBTQ writers. And if you are interested, head on over to the Sisters in Crime website, where the award will be open for entries until the end of July. We also have discounted membership through the end of the year using the code SUMMER26. So if when you join, you enter the code SUMMER26, you will get Sisters in Crime membership through the end of the year for the low price of only $30. What a bargain. And you get all sorts of webinars. You can join your local chapter for only a few dollars more and meet up locally with other crime writers in your area. There are tons of membership resources available to you. So check out the Sisters in Crime website to find out what all is there. I'm going to now bring in Adrian Andover, our guest for today, to talk about 5 choices indie authors must make. Hello, Adrian.
Hey, there I am. How's it going? Good to see
Hey,
you.
good. How are you?
I'm great. It's a beautiful day here in New Jersey. Not a cloud in the sky, low 70s. It's perfect.
Yeah, no humidity, finally. I'm excited about it. But then, I'm sure that's going to change on a dime. So we will enjoy it while we can.
Absolutely. I'm so happy to be here.
So may I introduce you briefly?
Please do. Go for it.
So Adrian Andover is the author of the Mixology Cozy Mystery series. The first book, Whiskey Business, won all sorts of awards last year. So I'm talking Agatha, I'm talking Lefty, I'm talking a nomination for the Anthony, which is coming up later this year, which would be impressive under any circumstances, but is particularly impressive for an indie author because you don't have the marketing muscle behind you of some of the traditionally published books. So we're going to get into that a little bit in our chat, but also want to note that you've got the sequel, Poor Choices, coming out in just a few weeks, and I'm reading it now and very much enjoying it. So thank you so much for being a part of our live today and talking about this topic.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's definitely been a ride, deciding to go indie, but then to have found so much success in that lane has been incredible. So I'm happy to share with all of the members of Sisters in Crime and beyond today.
And I'm sure there are a lot of people who are interested in this journey because a lot of people are looking for that special sauce that makes a book stand out. And when you're indie published, that means you're doing just about everything yourself. So before we really dig into this topic, I wondered if you could just give an overview of what indie publishing means for those who might not be familiar with these different terms of traditional publishing, indie publishing versus hybrid publishing, and what that decision looks like for you for how you were going to publish your books.
Yeah, so I think that when most people think publishing, they think of traditional publishing where you're, writing your book, you're finding an agent, the agent is looking to sell that book to an editor, and it goes to one of the big 5 publishing houses. Like when we're talking traditional publishing, that's what we're talking about. Indie is short for independent, for those of you who don't know, and it really just means doing it yourself. I prefer the term independent publishing or indie publishing over using the term self-publishing. I think there's some stigma there when people talk about self-published books. And as you mentioned, Mindy, it really is doing everything yourself. It's hiring your own editor, hiring your own cover design, doing all of your own marketing, building your own relationships with bookstores. That's indie. And then there is hybrid, which, some people might consider smaller presses to be hybrid publishing, just because, they they are operating as a publisher entity for you, but not maybe on the same scale as.
Yeah, they may not offer all of the services that a traditional publisher offers. So there may be some things that you're going to have to take on yourself. And yeah, there are all kinds of partnerships and ways that that can work.
Yeah, yeah. And then I think also when we say hybrid, it can mean like you don't have to choose just one lane. Like you can indie publish one series and maybe traditionally publish something else. So there's so many different routes to publication. And I think that in looking at all of those different paths that you could take, it's really thinking about what are your goals for your writing career, but also what is best for your story. There's some stories that really lend themselves to what would really do well in the market from like a broader sense, but you know, we've seen things like Dungeon Crawler Carl and other genres, or like you look at romantasy where, you know, there wasn't really an established precedent for those types of books in traditional publishing, but they were published the indie route and an audience was kind of invented for those books and traditional publishing caught on later. So you just kind of have
thinking about that at all as you were making that decision, whether there was space for you in the traditionally publishing market, or was that a different kind of decision? Just wanted to point out quickly that Sue in the chat says hello, and she's from
Sue.
Ellie's Patreon group.
Oh, nice to see you, Sue. Thanks for joining. Yeah, it was something. My intention was always to traditionally publish, and I had written before Whiskey Business. I had written a first book in another series, completely different kind of concept, and I was getting great feedback from agents as I was querying on the writing and characters and the story itself. But what I was hearing was that we don't know how to sell this. And I think part of it was changes in mass market, which has greatly affected the cozy mystery genre. But then I think also, and nobody actually said this to me, but publishing a book with a male and gay protagonist, which isn't super common in the cozy mystery genre, you know, that was a consideration for me, that my books kind of were outside of the realm of what was hot in the market of cozy mysteries. But then at the same time, I had gone to Malice Domestic, I had gone to Ashland Mystery Festival, and I saw that there was this thriving community and I was building these great relationships. And so I had the belief in my story enough to say, like, I don't want to be beholden to traditional publishing, and I decided, you know what, I think I can go out and do this myself, and it may not have the same reach or the same size of audience that I might get if I went the traditional route, but I can still find a community of readers, and so that was how I made my decision.
So talk a little bit about trends, because that's something that you kind of touched on through that, is that, you know, sometimes we're breaking new ground with what we're wanting to publish, and there may not be space in the market. Sometimes we're following an established trend and we're, you know, riding that wave of something, you know, suddenly vampire love stories are super hot, so we're riding that wave. Your day job is in marketing, which I think gives you a bit of an edge on these kinds of decision points, but it's something that we all struggle with, whether to play into a hot trend or whether to try to get ahead and make the next trend. How were you thinking about that as you planned this series?
Yeah, I mean, when it comes to storytelling, I say, like, be mindful for sure of trends, but don't try to write to trends. I certainly don't. I write what I love. If I'm going to sit and invest so much of my time and energy into telling a story, I want it to be something that I believe in a story that I want to tell, and something that's cathartic for me. I would also say that if you try to write to trends just because of the speed of trends, it seems like things are over so quickly these days that by the time you've written it and are publishing it, people might have moved on to the next thing. And it kind of goes to that point where I feel like, especially in the indie space, that's where the innovation happens. That's where you can do things and try things and find an audience and prove it out before traditional publishing has caught on. I would say from a marketing perspective, though, like once you've written the book, like it's good to like have an idea, like when it comes to cover design or writing your back cover copy or how you're positioning your books to readers. Yes, you should be mindful of the trends because you need to know where to slot it in. People, they won't know to look for your book if they're not aware of what they're searching for. So in that way, you kind of just have to know what's going on, and it takes a lot of following the market and research.
Hold up your books again, because I just want people to see these beautiful covers. We're talking a little bit about cover design. And I mean, I love so many things about these covers. They're super cozy. You feel like you could just sink into those chairs and get comfy cozy in them. And, you're surrounded by this warm amber light. But then the font is quite modern and distinctive. And the furniture has that kind of like mid-century mod retro but cool feel to it. How did you find your cover designer, and how specific were you in telling that person, working with that person, telling them what you wanted?
Yeah, so there's so many ways that you can find a cover designer these days. There's great resources, websites like Reedsy, which Reedsy is kind of like a Fiverr. It's like a freelance website where you can find, and it's all within the publishing realm. So editors are there, cover designers, all of those things are there.
And that's Reedsy, right? Is that
yes,
correct?
that's correct. Yeah, Reedsy. So that is an option. But like when we're talking about marketing and market research and trends, I literally went to Amazon and I looked at like the top 100 selling cozies, and you can go to the listing. You can often click, they'll have like the look inside preview of a book, and you like, without even having to purchase the book, you can go to the copyright page a lot of times and see who the cover designer is. You can go to a bookstore and look and see who's designed the book, either on the back cover or the copyright page. And I loved the covers for Ellie Alexander's Secret Bookcase Mysteries. And I saw that the cover designer was Dawn Adams, and she wasn't on Reedsy. I couldn't find her website. I did some digging, and I found a way to contact her. I found her email, and I reached out and I sent a cold email. And I think that's sometimes what it takes, is if there's a series that you love or that's doing well or is well positioned in the market, like sometimes artists, they'll be hired full time and they can't, they'll work for a major publishing house and they can't do any freelance work. But I was in the fortunate position where she was taking a freelance client. So
it's actually surprising. My cover designer also works freelance, even though it's traditionally published through one of the big houses. Sam Hadley, my fantastic cover designer, is not
beautiful.
Yeah, not on the payroll there. So that's something that I was able to do when I wanted to own the artwork for my covers. I could work with Sam's artistic agent to get those right. So that's something that kind of surprised me. But yeah, I think you're totally right. And that those acknowledgments pages and those kind of like interior jacket matter and things like that give you a lot of information about how publishing works and who's doing what for a book, because a lot of times people will thank, if they have a developmental editor or a copy editor, they'll thank those people in their acknowledgments, and it's worth doing a little stalking. I mean, we are writing detective fiction a lot of times, so yeah, this is something we should be good at or get good at. So yeah, I love your covers, and I'm so glad that you found success with those. And as you said, you went through Amazon when you're looking at this, because of course Amazon is the 800-pound gorilla in every publishing conversation. There's also a decision point for indie authors with regard to how to publish and where. So like, you've made the decision you're going to go indie, but then getting those books distributed so that readers can actually find them. There are a bunch of little decision points that need to happen. Can you talk about what that journey looked like for you?
Yeah, it was a really difficult decision to make. There was a point in time where I was thinking about, do I want to go the Kindle Unlimited route, which for anybody who doesn't know, I think it works a little bit differently in traditional publishing based on the relationships that they have with Amazon. But indie authors, if you're listing your ebook in the Kindle Unlimited program, you can't sell that ebook anywhere else. And in fact, I don't think you can even offer it for free in your newsletter. You can't do really anything with your ebook. Like, it is exclusively with Amazon. And I would never shame anybody for what they choose to do with their series, what their goals are. Everybody's different. Everybody has a different path. I was somebody who grew up going to the library, and that was like a big part of the dream for me, was like having my book available for libraries. And when your ebook is in Kindle Unlimited, it's not available in libraries in the same way. So I decided that I would go the wide route, which means that my ebook, you can find it on Barnes and Noble. I can sell it direct if I want to. I can, there's multiple ways, like it's not just Amazon where you can get my ebook. So that's just something where I think it's just really important to be clear on your career goals, your values, and also think about where you build community. Like, if you know that a lot of your target audience is on Kindle Unlimited, maybe that's a route that you want to explore. If you know that a lot of your readers are going to be looking for your ebook at the library, then maybe you consider going wide. So it's just being clear with what your goals are and whether or not you're willing to face some of the limitations, and also realizing that if you are exclusive with Amazon, there are heavy incentives for doing so from like a monetary standpoint. So it just really, it's a very personal choice.
That personal choice element is something that I now, anytime that anybody approaches me about wanting to publish and how do I get published and how did you get published, that personal choice piece of it is now like the first thing that I bring up, which is like, what are your goals for this and who are you trying to reach? Is this something, if I'm giving a talk at a lifelong learning institute where most of the people are retirees in their 70s and 80s, then I'll be very frank and just say, if you want to traditionally publish, this is a years long process. And if this is something that, you're interested in publishing a few books, then you might need to factor in, like, this is just going to take a super long time. So maybe you have different goals for that than somebody who's, in their 20s and still has a long time to, sit on a shelf somewhere waiting for an editor or an agent to get back to them about things. Is this something that you feel like a personal story that you feel like you just need to get the book written and out there? Or are there specific audiences that you're trying to reach? So I think all of that kind of stuff is something that really needs to be a part of all these decisions, that of course we all have the dream that our story is going to resonate with everybody and it's going to be a New York Times bestseller, but maybe we don't all have that dream, but many of us do. But if you have a different dream or if you have different goals for your work, then I think you're totally right that like those choices really need to factor in realistic goals and also personal feelings about where you want the work to land.
100%. Yeah. And that's the one thing that I think is the biggest takeaway from this whole discussion, because I don't yes, I have my marketing background and I had, certain goals that I wanted to do, but ultimately I do feel like I kept my, I'm losing the words for it, but it's like I always ask like what feels right for me at every step of the way. I do think that intuition is important, especially if when you're indie publishing, like you are running a business, and so to conduct that business in a way that feels authentic, I think is really important and something that I kept a top priority at every step.
So in terms of authenticity, obviously marketing as a job for a company or an organization is very different from marketing your own book, because part of the product that you're marketing, like it or not, is yourself. And that can be a really uncomfortable feeling for a lot of authors, because a lot of us tend to be more introverted and more comfortable maybe behind a screen than we are in front of a live audience. And I wanted to ask you, first I wanted to put in a plug maybe for Sisters in Crime's anthology Promophobia, which, if you have not picked this book up, I love the title of that book because I think it encapsulates so many of our feelings about publishing and putting ourselves out there and marketing our work. But it also has a lot of great hints and tips for marketing. Is that something that you found to be a pleasant surprise and unpleasant surprise, the side of this business that has you as part of your product?
Yeah, well, first of all, I have Promophobia on my Kindle, and I have for quite some time, and it's something that I've referred to, so I definitely want to support what you said on that. Yeah, I mean, I think that when it comes to marketing in general, the marketing that I do in my day job is so different than the marketing that I do around my publishing. And I would say to any writer, traditional, hybrid, indie, to shift your mindset from, like, it's not just about selling books. Like, I think of it as building community, and that is such a game changer. Like, to me, it feels slimy to get on a platform and say, buy my book, this is what my book is about, whatever. But like, if I'm doing that with the intention of wanting to build community around my books, like, it just feels a lot more natural to me. And maybe it's the same tactic that I'm doing, it's the same outcome. Like, it's just that if you invest in relationships and invest in community, I believe that the sales will follow. So from that perspective, I don't necessarily feel like I'm marketing myself. It's like, I feel like I'm trying to build something, and it means so much to me. Like, when I see the same readers commenting on something, or even the best feeling is like when two readers like interact with each other in the comments. Like, it feels like my world that I've created in my stories has connected these people and brought them together. And I feel like that is the kind of the secret sauce to marketing is, you want to provide value. You want to, entice people to want to jump into your books and jump into your world. But I think it's the community that gets them to stay and feel welcome in this world of AI generated stories and content. Like, that's the thing that readers want. They want to connect with you. They want to connect with your process. They want to connect with each other about stories. And so in that way, I feel like it's a pretty natural balance between marketing my books, and then also just trying to invest in and build this community of readers.
I wholeheartedly agree, and I could not have said it better myself. And I find personally that I get a lot more out of it when I focus on that community building aspect. That it's I've made a lot of really good friends, and they're the ones that make it fun. When I go to events and I see a reader that I've interacted with on social media, or someone who's written to me, and then we get to talk in person, those interactions are so much more valuable and really give meaning to what I'm doing and make things concrete. That, okay, I wrote this book, I hoped that it would get out there and affect somebody in this way, and then here it did. And there's just nothing more gratifying than that. And like you say, at the end of the day, like, that community is what you're going to have left, when you're when you have no books to sell, you still have those friendships and those people and that journey. So I really, really appreciate you coming on today, Adrian, and this was super enlightening. I hope that folks will refer back to this, because it's a great primer for people who are getting started in indie publishing or starting to make some of those decisions. Lots of great tips here, which are summarized in the captions. If you have questions that you want to follow up with afterwards, feel free to put those in the comments if you're watching this later, and maybe just tag Adrian so that he can see that they're there, and then he'll come back and answer them later. But thanks to everybody who joined us today.